What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Wednesday night real estate recap where we talk about everything to do with the housing market and some other stuff. Got another great live for you tonight. It's been a week since the election. Last week, we were right after the election, and we talked about what was going on and what was projected to happen in regards to the housing market. And now it's been a week and things have settled a little bit. Some new articles have come out, some new opinions. So we're definitely going to go over that. But before we do that, I want to bring on my fantastic guest. His name is Adam Miller. He's another real estate agent. He's been licensed for 11 years, lives in Florida, and moved there from Hawaii, which I think is very, very cool. So let's bring him on. Hey, Adam.
Hey there, Caryn. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Beautiful evening here in Florida.
Is it? What's the weather there like?
Today, relatively speaking, pretty cool. It was probably in the mid 80s.
Oh, that's nice. We actually finally got it a little bit cooler here. It was mid 80s here in the DC area, which was like super annoying. I'm like ready for the fall weather. I want to like make a fire in the fireplace. Like I'm ready for it. You know, you're probably used to the sun and heat, but up here, like,
we kind of like it. It does get a little cooler. Last year it was really cold here in this time of the year.
Hey, Vonda, thanks for joining us. Got any questions? Let us know. We're glad that you're here. So, Adam, when we first met, and I put that in quotes because we never actually met in person, we were part of this Facebook group that is realtors that also make videos for YouTube. You lived in Hawaii. Yeah,
lived on Maui, actually not once, but twice, but this last time, for 5 years on Maui.
I think that's so cool. Like, first of all, how did you end up there and why did you leave?
Well, I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but the first time I moved there was because I wrote some goals. My boss at a former company way before real estate, probably a decade before real estate, took us to a seminar, like a 3-day seminar. He's like, this has nothing to do with work. This has everything to do with you and your life. We're going to write some goals. And we spent 2.5 days writing out goals. And I was like, one day I'm going to move to Maui. And then,
just went. So you didn't know anyone. You just bought a ticket and off you went.
And actually, I moved from Virginia Beach, believe it or not, to Maui the first time.
Wow. And so then you stayed for 5 years all in Maui?
So then I stayed for 2 years and then bounced around the country and then settled in Florida. And we were here for 11 years. And at the top of our game, we're like, we should just move to Maui. And not as simple as that because it's not easy to move to Maui. But packed up everything and moved to Maui.
And then, so you left recently? I think you've been back in Florida for how long?
We moved back here like the week before Christmas. We kind of knew before the fires that we were moving, but because of the fires, we kind of stayed and we were just kind of like in help zone. The real estate market pretty much collapsed, so we weren't really working. There was pretty much no real estate to do. So basically from August, September, October, November, I mean, we were like all in doing everything we could to help raising money. We raised close to $100,000. We're cooking meals for hundreds of people and people sending us like dozens of boxes to our house and just kind of like in help zone.
That's awesome. Good for you, man. That's really cool. I'm glad that you were able to help so many people. That's amazing. Thank you for that. And and now that you've been back, where are you in Florida exactly?
So we are in Lakewood Ranch. People know Sarasota. So it's about an hour south of Tampa, about 20 minutes from like Siesta Key, 20 miles from about Siesta Key Beach, Anna Maria Island.
So did you get impacted by the hurricanes and tornadoes and everything?
This last one for sure. So we hunkered down and stayed, and it came right over Lakewood Ranch. And I've been through hurricanes before. This was an ordeal because it came right over us. Now, what I learned about this one is that you kind of want it coming right over you because the winds are obviously damaging and strong, but there was probably like 2 hours of like 100-mile winds, and then for an hour and a half, nothing.
Wow.
No rain, no wind, no noise, and of course it's nighttime, like just dead silence because that's the eye of the storm coming over you. And then of course that the other part is coming, and that's the dangerous part. And of course that happened overnight. And we lucked out. This area, the Lakewood Ranch area, just lots of wind damage.
Okay.
Pool cages, trees, fences. Although ironically, literally just today, not too long ago, I finally went down to the beaches to do a video for my YouTube channel just to kind of see what it looked like. And yeah, it's interesting. If you don't live at the beach, it's easy to forget. I'm sure this is anywhere where there's some kind of storm or damage. It's easy to forget like what life is really like. And yeah, it was kind of eye opening, and it's been a month, and
right.
Yeah, it's still catastrophic.
Did you guys lose power?
Interesting enough, we have always been told since we moved into this place that we were on the same grid as the hospital, which is less than a half a mile away. And I don't know if that's the case because we did lose power for a short amount of time, but like a couple hours.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you're okay. And I'm glad that was only for a short amount of time. I know that, I'm here right outside of DC. I grew up here, but when I first moved back 19 years ago, oh my God, it feels like yesterday. It was 19 years ago. I don't know. It was different. I mean, weather, I guess, was a little cooler, but I think it was also just the power lines were different because we used to lose power all the time. We haven't for years now. But when I moved back, I was 9 months pregnant with a 1-year-old. And so those first like 5 years, every time we lost power with 2 little kids, it was awful. It was really hard. So whenever I hear about like other people losing power in other places, whether it's Florida or Texas or anywhere, I'm always like, oh my gosh, I feel so bad for those families with little kids because it is just so challenging.
Yeah, I know. I was in Virginia Beach when there was, gosh, I can't remember what hurricane that was back in the early 2000s, and we had lost power for like a week, 7, 8, 9 days.
Yeah, brutal. All right. Well, I definitely want to chat with you more about that, but let's get to the first article, which has to do with the weekly housing market update from realtor.com. So let me bring it up. Okay. Can you see that okay?
I can.
Okay. So I'm just going to read this and then we'll talk about it. So this is the weekly housing market update. Election puts housing supply and affordability on the radar. This is by Daniel Hale. And like I said, it's for realtor.com. This week, the focus was on the presidential election, where the Republican Party was the clear voters' choice, even though both votes are still being tallied. This is written a couple days ago. Investors, markets, and businesses are already beginning to adjust to the implications, and for housing, the results are mixed. President-elect Donald Trump was rightly vocal on the campaign trail about the need to improve housing affordability, a wide shared priority, and he has offered both supply and demand-side solutions. The Fed met in the days after the election and moved the policy rate down by a 1/4 percentage point, which is widely expected. Smaller than the half-point cut in September, this adjustment is more typical. But despite the Fed rate cut, longer-term interest rates, such as yields on the 10-year Treasury, have largely continued to climb, closing above 4.4% for the first time since July. Mortgage rates mirrored this climb, hitting 6.79% this week, also a 4-month high. Higher rates have led to drop-off of mortgage applications for home purchases, but despite the week-to-week pullback, activity surpasses last year when mortgage rates were substantially higher. Despite the climb in rates over the past few weeks, in a pre-election survey, home buyers were optimistic, with 1 in 5 expecting rates to move higher in the next year. Our weekly housing data shows that homes for sale continue to climb, along with a growing number of new sellers compared with last year, but the gap was smaller than we've seen earlier this year. And then finally, nationwide, homes took more than a week longer to sell compared with 1 year ago. But in October's hottest markets, mostly found in the Northeast and Midwest, homes still sell fast. Interesting enough, New Hampshire continued to rank as the #1 market, which I was like, oh, I was just in New Hampshire recently and it's really nice, but I don't know. I didn't know it was the #1 market. I mean, it's got a lot to offer. It's got a lot of coastal land and stuff like that, but it's cold. It's up there. It's north of Massachusetts. So I was surprised by that. So let me ask you, just based on this, what's happening where you are in Florida? Like what's happening in your market? Are you guys busy? Are you seeing a lot of activity?
Yeah, it's a really interesting area. So the area that I am in, Lakewood Ranch, is like a little bubble because it is just booming. It was growing when we left. It's kind of a planned unit development. When we left 5 years ago, there were, I think, like 12 neighborhoods. Now there's like 45.
Oh, wow.
So a ton of new construction, but they're stagnant for sure. Like the buyer or the builder incentives are just insane. So yes, interest rates are high. Yes, a lot of buyers are a little concerned with the new buyer broker agreement that they have to sign,
Mhm.
and prices are high.
So is it
But there are,
mostly, so I'm sorry to interrupt you. Is
I
it
was saying that
mostly new
there's lots of
construction?
opportunities because the builders are slow, but they're still
Mhm.
building. So they're offering great incentives.
So is it mostly new construction where you're at, or is there resale
And
homes as well?
yeah, so it's kind of a twofold situation. So Lakewood Ranch is a lot of new construction. It's been around for 20 years, so obviously it's a lot of old construction. But then we have the coastal situation, which got inundated. I just actually I did a video the other day talking about properties from far north of our county to the far kind of south, up and down the coast. So homes and condos that are on either the Gulf of Mexico or on kind of the bay or interior waters. And even though I can't necessarily track it specifically to the storm,
Mhm.
I pulled up the data on just kind of that strip. It's probably 40, 50 miles to see properties that came off the market, not properties that sold, not properties that just got listed, like properties that either are temporarily off the market, right? Means
Mhm.
that for some reason or another they took it off, or just withdrawn completely. And over the last 90 days, which is when we've had 3 hurricanes,
Right.
there are about, all said and done in the 2 counties, like 800 properties to have come off the market,
Oh, wow.
which is an excessive amount. And I can't, like I said, I can't put the hard data that says it is because of the storm, but there's a huge reason that you just can't sell a house if it's damaged. And I was down at the beach today, and one of the things that I noticed, obviously, if there's a condo community that has 500 units in it, and just the bottom floor was damaged, you still can't get in to see any of the other ones because the whole building is closed. So if you had a
Right.
condo for sale on the 3rd floor, the 5th floor, you can't show it because the
Yeah.
whole property is closed. So probably a big reason. So that's a big impact as well here too.
Have you noticed since the election any difference in energy or just the vibe around there, or is everyone still just focused on, what happened, the damage from the storms and the hurricanes and all that?
Yeah, this is very, again, not to get political, highly Republican area. We're in Sarasota, Manatee County. And I have definitely seen an uptick in new listings, like not significant, but enough to recognize, like, because I look at the data every morning and I was like, that seems a lot higher. Oh, the next day, oh, that seems higher too. So certainly over the course of
Mhm.
the last 5 days, there seems to be more active listings, not necessarily more pending or sold, but definitely more properties. It seems to be hitting the market.
Yeah. And by the way, we're not going to talk about politics. We're going to
Nope.
talk about the new administration as it relates to the housing market. But I'm with you. This is not a political channel. That
Yep.
if you're watching this to learn to talk about politics, it's the wrong channel. We're just going to talk about how it affects the housing market.
For sure.
And interesting enough, even where I am, right outside of DC and DC, Montgomery County, Maryland, and Northern Virginia, all of a sudden I feel like it's getting busy again. Got a couple of contracts ratified in the last couple of days. I'm getting people calling me talking about listing and buying. And I think that honestly, in my opinion, I want to see what you think. I don't think it's really about who won the election, just the fact that the election is over, and
Yes.
now they're like, okay, we know what to expect. Let's move on. And I really thought that it would be a much bigger impact depending on who won, but my feeling is it's just about it just having happened and like people are like just ready to move on from it. What about you?
Yeah, I did an interesting video the other day. And I am, totally data driven. I can take my objectivity out of it. And I just pulled up all the data that is available to the public of what actually happens because of an election, not how I feel. Obviously, you're entitled to how you feel. You're entitled to your opinion. You're just not entitled to your own set of facts. So I just got all the data from every source. What happens with interest rates, before, during, and after election? What happens with prices before, during, and after? And it's kind of what's happening. And I think you're right. I think it had nothing to do with who won,
Right.
just the fact that, it's over.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that when people are dealing with an unknown, they tend to freeze. I mean, I can just say for myself, I do the same thing. So I imagine a lot of people do. And then regardless of what the outcome was, I think, okay, now we kind of know what's going to happen for the next 4 years. And then they just become active again. But Speaking of the next 4 years, let's go straight to what the experts are saying. So let me bring, and by the way, I'm still not great at managing all these things in the background here. So if you guys are on and you have any questions for Adam or myself or anything, put them in the chat and I will definitely get to them.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's a little hard to like get on your laptop or your computer and kind of switch the sharing the screens.
Yeah, I'm just still getting, I've only been doing this a couple months. I'm still getting used to it, but it's fun. And, you know, if you're watching on the replay and you have any questions or comments, please feel free to put them in the comment section and we will get to them as well. Okay, here's what the Trump presidency could mean for the housing market, experts say. This was written just 2 days ago. So, you know what, before I get to this, because Jill just put a question, I'm going to get to her first. Is it a good time to sell your house now or should we wait till after the holidays? My first question to you is, where do you live? Because that, I think, would determine my answer. But in general, like where I am here, our weather is still really good. So I actually do have some listings coming on now. I already had one and it got bought the first day I went on. So right now, I think it's still pretty active, depending on where you live. Let's see, she's saying Pittsburgh. Yeah, no. I know. Sorry, Jill, but you guys beat us last week. It's very, very close. I'm a Commanders diehard fan. That's okay, because we're not going to talk about football either. So I think that, listen, to be honest, I would probably wait till after the holidays. You know, if you have really good weather and you're ready to put that on the market like today, you still have a couple weeks before Thanksgiving. Houses around here, at least, that are priced well and show well are going fast. And then you could get that to settle before the end of the year or the beginning of next year. So thank you, Jill, for saying that. Now I like you even more. But if you're not ready to go on the market, don't rush it. Wait till after the holidays. I think the new year, especially, you know, you're not that far from me. The weather's been pretty good in the last couple of Januaries. As long as the weather's good, I would probably wait till after the holidays. If I have a listing that's ready to go right now, I put it on right now because I know it's going to sell before Thanksgiving. But if I have another one that's not ready, I'm going to wait till the new year. So that's what I think. What about you, Adam?
I'm going to respectfully disagree.
Okay. Good.
I remember I bought my house in Virginia Beach. Believe it or not, I remember my mom taking me to her office on Black Friday and faxing in an offer. So I think, from my experience, is that a lot of sellers have that mindset going, I'm going to wait till after the holidays. So if you are in a position where you can list it now, you have less competition.
That is true. I agree with you. You definitely have less competition. But I'm going to stand by my answer. If you're ready to go now, I agree with you. But I think between Thanksgiving and Christmas and the New Year, at least around here, it definitely slows down. And I think everybody kind of wants to just relax. And so the New Year is like new energy, new year. And it traditionally in our market where I am, you get more money in the spring too. There is more competition. There's also more buyers out. So I don't know if that helped you, Jill, but you got a couple of opinions here. And I wish you the best of luck. And if you need any help finding a good vetted real estate agent where you are, definitely hit me up because I have a great network there. Okay, let's get to this article. Here's what the Trump presidency could mean for the housing market, experts say. And this is written, like I said, just a couple of days ago. President-elect Donald Trump wants to address housing affordability in the United States by fomenting the construction of new homes. We're going to open up tracts of federal land for housing construction, Trump said during an August 15th news conference. We desperately need housing for people who can't afford what's going on now. As of mid-2023, there has been a housing shortage of 4 million homes in the U.S., according to the National Association of Realtors. It's clear that the prescription for the crisis is more building, said Jim Tobin, president and CEO of the National Association of Home Builders. So I'm going to finish reading this first, and then we'll take it section by section. There has been a small increase in new homes being built this year, but it's still not enough to meet the high demand for housing, leaving a significant gap in the market where there are not enough homes available for buyers, experts say. Single-family housing starts in the United States, a measure of new homes that began construction, grew to 1,027,000 in September, according to U.S. Census data. That is a 2.7% jump from August. While building more homes is a simpler answer to address the housing issue in the country, other promises Trump has made could deter affordability efforts, experts say. For instance, Trump has talked about enacting a mass deportation. I'm going to just jump in here. It says Trump has talked about enacting a mass deportation of immigrants, but actually, my understanding is Trump has talked about enacting a mass deportation of illegal immigrants in the United States, not just immigrants. So I'm not going to agree with this article for that. But doing so might lead to higher building costs as the construction industry depends on immigrant labor, said Jacob Channel, senior economist at LendingTree. He also claimed he would pull down mortgage rates back to pandemic era lows, although presidents do not control mortgage rates, experts say. Here's how some of Trump's policies could affect the housing market during his administration, according to the experts. Okay, so we'll go through them one by one. Do you agree with me, though? I mean, I don't want to get political, but I do believe he was saying he wants to enact a mass deportation of illegal immigrants in the United States.
Yeah, that wording is off.
Okay, good. I mean, like I said, I don't want to get political, but I do believe that that is not correct, what they've written. All right, so let's look at the first one, and then we'll discuss it. Deregulation to increase affordability. At the end of Trump's first presidency, he signed an executive order eliminating regulatory barriers to affordable housing, federal, state, local, and tribal opportunities. That could be a blueprint going forward, said Dennis Shea, executive director of the Bipartisan Policy Center's Terwilliger? Do you know what that is? Terwilliger?
Mm-hmm.
I hope I'm saying that right. I apologize. I sometimes have a problem with words, but I do the best I can. Terwilliger Center. During his 2024 campaign, Trump called for slashing regulations and permit requirements, which can add onto housing costs for homebuyers. Experts say that regulatory costs trickle down to the prices homebuyers face. We will eliminate regulations that drive up housing costs with the goal of cutting the cost of a new home in half. Okay. Trump said in a speech at the Economic Club of New York on September 5th, about 24% of the cost of a single-family home and about 41% of the cost of a multifamily home are directly attributable to regulatory costs at the local, state, and federal level, Tobin said. If we reduce the regulatory burden on home construction or apartment construction, we're going to lower costs for the consumer. Okay, so I want to hear what you think, and I definitely want to give my opinion. You want me to go first? You want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot to digest. I read this article. I actually went onto Trump's website to kind of read what his platform is. And yeah, I don't disagree with a lot of that. I think it's a matter of can you get it done? Can you deregulate to drop those prices? I've been told for many years from the National Association of Realtors and others that it's almost impossible to build our way out of the massive issue that we have just because we are short 4 million homes. I mean, even if you got deregulation January 21st, that's just a tremendous amount of homes to build to fit those needs.
Yeah. And that I agree with you. That is true. And I do think it may not be cutting home prices in half. I think that's a bit of an exaggeration. But if the data shows that 24% of the cost of a single-family home and 41% of multifamily home are directly attributable to regulatory costs, and those are taken down, then it does make sense that home prices or the cost of buying a home would go down. What it doesn't do, in my opinion, is affect the comps of the homes around it. You with me? Like, even if you could bring down the cost of building a home, would the builders then still lower their prices to the consumer? That I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting because I just went to a meeting the other day, and they happened to have in this meeting, they were talking about Lakewood Ranch and what's going to happen in 2025, but they also had like 20 of the builders there with the table set up. And I telling you beforehand, the amount of incentives that the builders are offering here because houses are just sitting. And I've known, and you've probably seen this too, those type of things have always been negotiable, kind of, sort of, but what was never that I've experienced in my career is negotiation on price. right? Like I can get you the free washer and dryer upgrade or the free, quartz countertops, but it was never like I can't make that $700,000 house $650 until recently, because we have started to hear that they are lowering those prices because they're still building. At least in my area, they're still building, they're still sitting, and even though they're offering incentives, they have 10 other builders who are also building that they've got to compete with, and I have seen them adjusting those prices. So clearly, there's got to be some wiggle room on their bottom line that they can afford to adjust the price.
Yeah. But that to me is more about there's just too much inventory that's not selling. So they're trying to compete for the buyer to buy their particular. That doesn't really talk about just the deregulation and making the homes more less expensive to build. That being said, if their margins get better, it could give them, could let them be, I don't know what my words are. It could allow them to lower their prices and still make their same margins. So that does make sense. And as we both know, real estate is so localized. I mean, we don't have a lot of new construction going on where I am, and the new construction that is going on is really, really expensive. Like these townhomes are starting at 1.5 million around the corner from me.
Wow.
So so they're not even close to affordable, and there's just not enough. And I see them being built on these land that was like a parking lot, and now it's going to be a bunch of townhomes. And all I think to myself is, where are they all going to park, and where are they all going to drive on the street? Because we already have such bad traffic.
That's what that's what my whole area looks like right now.
Right. Oh, it looks like what? New construction?
Just new construction, and you go, where are they all gonna live? Where are they gonna work?
Are they building more like commercial areas as well to surround it, like more grocery stores and everything else?
The interesting thing, so at least in my town of Lakewood Ranch, it's a planned unit development, so it has all of that infrastructure in there already. So they are building some more, but quite honestly, they probably don't need any more of that.
Yeah. Okay, let's go into the second thing. 2, impacts on construction workforce. Trump has also blamed rising home prices on a surge of illegal immigration during the Biden administration. However, experts say that most undocumented immigrants are not homeowners. Instead, they live in homes owned by U.S. citizens, Channel said. If a mass deportation were to happen, such homes will remain occupied, he added. Yet proposals like mass deportations and tighter border control could impact housing affordability, Tobin said. About a third, or 31%, of construction workers in the U.S. were immigrants, according to the National Association of Home Builders. Anything that threatens to disrupt the flow of immigrant labor will send shockwaves to the labor market in home construction, Tobin said. It's been difficult to recruit native-born workers into the construction industry. According to a 2017 National Association of Home Builders survey, construction trades are an unpopular career choice for young American adults. Only 3% showed interest in the field, the poll found. Therefore, a mass sweeping of available workers can create a labor shortage in construction. And with fewer workers, wages might increase, which will likely be passed on to consumers through higher home prices. What's more, it will take longer for construction companies to complete housing projects and therefore slow down efforts to increase supply, he added. While we are doing a better job training the domestic workforce through trade schools, apprenticeship programs, and other initiatives, the industry still heavily relies on immigrant labor, Tobin said. So once again, I feel like they keep, combining immigrant and illegal immigrants, and they're very, very different. Do you know what I'm saying? And when you mesh it all up and put it all together, I don't feel like it's an accurate portrayal of anything,
Just poor wording on their spot, whether they mentioned it or not, is a whole different.
So do you think they're just talking about illegal immigrants?
They should be. I mean, that's the topic. I think they're just wording it wrong. Like I said, whether that's done on purpose, I don't know. But yes, that should be the verbiage.
Yeah. I mean, I totally understand that if you lose a lot of people working in construction, you're going to get delays. And if you only have a certain amount of experienced people in construction in the building industry, they're going to want more money because they can ask for money because there's there'll be a scarcity of, experienced good workers. So that makes sense. So it makes sense the math makes sense to me, right? I just don't know if their data is reliable. And I hate to say that, but it may just be like using the wrong words. I think it's a very important distinction between American immigrants and illegal immigrants, so I really would like to know what they're talking about. I mean, do you have any context, to
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to assume for the sake of this topic of conversation that they are talking about illegal immigrants, because obviously you can't deport legal immigrants.
right.
But the sheer fact is that there are certainly lots of illegal immigrants working in lots of industries, certainly the construction industry for sure. So if you deport those and then there's a massive shortage of workers,
Right.
Who's going to take those jobs? Because, a lot of people don't want those jobs. And if they do want them, they're going to want probably more money, which could affect the cost. But I think
Right.
it's going to be a massive issue, because the reality is that a lot of those illegal immigrants are working at jobs in construction and others, rightly so, wrongly so. But companies are hiring them. And I know before I got into the real estate business many years ago, I worked in California in a restaurant for a very famous celebrity chef, and was responsible for opening up a restaurant. And by the time we interviewed our 500 kitchen staff and only hired about 10 people, because the vast majority could not supply legal documentation. And in this case, that's what we were only hiring legal immigrants. We were kind of in panic mode. Like, we're about to open a massive celebrity chef restaurant with nobody in the kitchen because we can't find people
Anyone to work. Yeah. So what happened? What did you end up doing?
Well, what I went up doing is went to a lot of other, let's say, corporate restaurants, and just went in there and I was like, listen, my name is Adam Miller. I am the regional director for blah, 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 blah. We're opening a new restaurant here. I'm not looking to steal your employees, but if you have nighttime employees who are working for daytime work and vice versa, we'd love the opportunity to, interview them for a position at our restaurant. And that's what we did.
So I wonder if they'll do that, go to different buildings or builders and, kind of do something like that. Maddie B says the high regulatory costs are mostly in the zoning and permitting stage, so future construction, and it is mostly at the state and local levels. Yeah, I think that's what they're saying as well. But if those costs can be reduced because the regulations are uplifted, that they think the home prices would go down. I just don't agree with it. Realtor.com, there's a quote here, says, in the short run, reducing immigration could severely hurt the labor supply needed for new home building, since up to a third of residential construction employment consists of foreign-born workers. So I think that it's basically saying the same thing that we're saying, that it's not so much, it's more like if they don't have enough work, well, it's both things, I think, actually. If they don't have enough workers, it's going to drive the prices up, and also delay. And when you delay things, then that also costs more.
Yep.
Thanks, Maddie. And anyone else who wants to chime in, please do, because this is it's all, interesting stuff. Okay. Number 3, tariffs could hike building costs. Trump has proposed a 10% to a 20% tariff on all imports across the board, as well as a rate between 60% and 100% for goods from China. A blanket tariff at 10% to 20% on raw building materials like lumber could push housing costs higher, as well as materials for home renovations, experts say. Any tariffs that raise the cost of the products are going to flow directly to the consumer, Tobin said. On average, construction costs for single-family homes is around $392,241, according to a data analysis by Resi Club, a housing and real estate data newsletter. It depends on what the tariffs look like, said Daryl Fairweather, chief economist at Redfin. There could be varying impacts. Overall, home builders expect to construct about 1.2 million new single-family homes and around 300,000 multifamily units over the next year. We're not quite building back up to the pace that we need to, but it'll be higher, he said. It'll be higher than this year. It might be too soon to tell if the Trump administration will prioritize housing costs as much as a Harris administration would have, and the aid Trump has mentioned might not help densely populated areas, said Fairweather. Trump mentioned plans to release federal lands for housing, but federal lands tend to concentrate in rural areas, she said. It doesn't do anything for these densely populated blue cities that really need the most help. I think that that's that. Interesting. I wanted to go back because, and they were talking about that, when he talks about raising the tariffs on goods coming out of China, and he did talk about this a lot. When I would hear him talk about it, I was like, my first thought was, okay, so that's going to do what? That's going to make China owe us more money, or minimize our debt to them, because I think we have a big debt to them. Is that why he's doing this? But it would make sense if things are going to be more expensive or taxed higher, then of course it's going to cost us more. I mean, am I missing something? Like, it just seems logical.
Yeah, the tariffs will cost American companies more money, and they can either suck that up or they can pass it along. And if they pass it along, it's going to cost us more. I mean, I know this seems super simplified, but I think you and I both know, I think, that the easy fix, and a president can't do it, is to get the interest rates lower.
So funny you say that. Let me
because that solves a big problem. So it's not that the $700,000 house is too expensive. It's the $700,000 house at 7% interest rate is too expensive.
Yeah, and they didn't address that article, but in this other one that this is Money Talks from today, actually, from November 13th. So 4 Trump plans that could help or hurt the housing market. And a lot of them are similar, so I'm not going to go through it all. But the other one did mention this, creating a tax break for first-time buyers. The incoming president. What? Yeah, you haven't seen that? I saw this earlier. The incoming president plans to promote homeownership through tax incentives and support for first-time buyers. As we reported in 8 groups who can expect new tax breaks under Trump, there are very few details about this proposal. Trump has not specified the dollar value of this tax break or how it would work. Trump's election opponent, Vice President Kamala Harris, also proposed a tax break for first-time buyers. It's worth noting that some critics have said these types of incentives actually drive home prices higher. I had not heard of Trump doing this. I had heard about Harris, the $25,000 that she was going to do for first-time buyers. And when I even heard that, once again, that's not about politics, about housing market. My first thought is that's great to help these first-time buyers, but more buyers in a market that still doesn't have the housing supply to balance it, to me, says prices are going to go up.
Correct.
There's more competition.
It's that catch-22.
Right. Supply and demand. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. So, like I said, I was looking at because they both are very, very vocal about the housing market, which is very interesting to us because it's we live in and we work in. And when I would hear certain things, they sound like you just said, so simple. But I was like, think this through, people. Like, we all know it's supply and demand. So how do you figure getting more buyers in the market without increasing the inventory is going to lower home prices and make them more affordable? It doesn't make sense to me. All right, we already went over that. I do
have an opinion on that one too. Going back to federal lands.
No, please. We'll go to this
about federal lands, because in theory that sounds absolutely fantastic. I did. I'm not going to pull it up at the moment. Well, I did. I pulled up the map.
Here, hang on. Let me get you.
Of federal land. I did. We don't have to show it, but I can just. Yeah, I did pull up the map of the federal lands, and as you can see, that's where the most of them are. Right, so not so much in the, like that other article said, in the densely populated area, there's not a whole ton of federal lands.
Yeah.
It's in more rural areas: Nevada, Utah, Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, Idaho. Fantastic for them. California, Oregon.
Right.
But a lot of those are rural areas. So even if they were able to get the federal land, not necessarily going to help you if you're in Northern Virginia.
Right. Unless people can really work from home again.
Yeah.
Then it could help. And let me just get to this last thing, because the other article didn't cover this. Lowering mortgage rates. The proposal under Trump, Republicans plan to reduce mortgage rates by slashing inflation. how it might affect the housing market. If the new president is successful in further reducing inflation, it could lead to more rate cuts by the Federal Reserve, which in turn could drive mortgage rates lower. But at the end of the day, presidents have no direct control over mortgage rates. The free market dictates these costs. Realtor.com senior economist Ralph McLaughlin says the real source of the affordability crisis is the lack of housing supply. Housing supply, or lack thereof, has plagued the U.S. housing market for at least a decade. I think it's been since 2012, right after the crash of 2008, and it took a couple of years. Then builders were like, yeah, we're not doing that again. With our estimate of a range of 2.5 million to 7.2 million unit gap from 2012 to 2023, depending on the assumptions of the analysis, due to a combination of both geographic and legal constraints on development. We simply haven't built enough housing when and where we needed it most. It's so easy to say,
Yeah.
we're going to lower mortgage rates, and they did do that during the pandemic. They did. They stimulated the economy by really slashing mortgage rates and giving people money. And, so they definitely, the president can't do it, but it's like they can manipulate the economy. But we had very special circumstances, talking about the pandemic. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I have very strong feelings on it. I think historians will look back and historians will look back and say that interest rates in the 2, 3, even 4% rates might have been some of the worst things that ever happened to this country. Maybe not the worst things that ever happened, but terrible for a whole lot of reasons. You've seen that data that says like 65% of homeowners have a mortgage rate like under 4%, and like 50% of those said that they will not sell unless interest rates get below 5%, which, and you probably sat through as much webinars and Zoom calls. Nobody thinks that interest rates are even going to get like maybe close to 5 by the end of next year at this time, maybe. So that's sellers who are, I can't remember the terminology, sellers who are stuck in their house because of their interest rate only.
Yeah, the locked-in effect. And I keep pointing to myself because I'm one of those sellers.
Of course, yeah. And you're not alone, 65%, and that's a massive issue. And interest rates are not going to get below 5%, maybe, I don't know about ever, but certainly not in the next 18 to 24 months. So do those homeowners still hold on and hold back that inventory from the buyers to want it? So yes, lowering interest rates would be fantastic, but you're about my same age, 7% interest rate, which is where it is now, not unreasonable.
First of all, how old do you think I am? I'm only 25.
Yeah, you're a couple decades younger than me. But I mean, my first house I bought, interest rates were, I think, higher than 7%. Those are not unreasonable or not unnormal, but people think that they should be 2, 3, 4%.
My first house that I bought was in California. I lived in California for 9 years before I moved back here. And I think we had like a 6.5%. And when we moved here, which was 19 years ago, I got us a 6%. I was so happy. I was like thrilled. And then in the last 19 years, I refinanced when it went into like the mid 4s. And then like about 6 or 7 years ago, it went a little bit below 4 and I got like a 3.875. And then 2021, I refinanced again to the 2.875. And I just became an empty nester. We don't know each other, but I have 2 kids and my youngest just went to college. And I always thought, when my youngest goes to college, I'm getting out of the suburbs. Love it here, but I'm like, enough. I did my time in the suburbs. It was great for the kids. I'm going to go into the city, into DC, or go just someplace different, and it is too cheap to stay in my house for me to make that move. I mean, I was talking to, I guess last week, I was like, I don't even think I could afford to buy my house right now, and if I can't afford to buy the house, then right. So Toby says, do you think mortgage rates will get in the 5s? And go for it. Yeah. I mean, you just answered.
I just sat in, my brokerage had a seminar. We were in Vegas for 3 days. I'm Tom Ferry coaching, sat in seminar, and 2 different analysts talked about, what all the experts, everybody who's somebody in that field project. And I can't remember who they all were, but 98% of those experts, or probably 10 or 15 of them, said maybe by fourth quarter 2025, they get in the high fives.
Yeah, that's what I've heard too. Like you, I do a lot of data research for my videos and stuff. And Toby, what we're hearing, and like nobody does a crystal ball, but we're hearing unless something like really drastic happens with inflation that changes things, that interest rates will probably stay around where they are now in the mid to low sixes, fluctuating into 2025. And maybe by the end of 2025, it will be like 6, maybe it'll dip below 6. A lot of this also depends on your specific situation, your credit score, your, how much you're putting down. There also are some other programs that do have more attractive rates. I'm not a mortgage lender, so I can't get into them all now, but I know with you, like with us I'm at Compass, when we have our meetings, we have our mortgage lenders come in and they tell us about the different programs they have that are offering like the 5.5%. I'm sorry, I don't remember they are, but you can always email me and I'll put you in touch with Frankie because she's the one that spoke about it, and ask her to say, Caryn said you had some program in the mid fives, because they do exist. I just don't know what the qualifications are for that.
Yeah, I wrap up all of my live streams to go through some of the builder incentives, and there was one builder who was going to offer like 2.75% interest rate for the first year, and like 3.5% for the second year, and like
right
4 point something for the third year, which is that's phenomenal. But again, just unrealistic.
Yeah. Yeah, and have seen those too. They scare me a little bit because that reminds me a little bit of back in 2000 and,
balloon rates.
Yeah, when like it sounds, they can afford it the first year, even the second year, and then all of a sudden year 3 and 4, it's like, oh my God, I didn't realize. Yeah. Plus, if the home values are going up, then your insurance and your property taxes are going up, and all of a sudden you have a mortgage rate. I mean, you have a monthly mortgage payment that's much more expensive than you originally thought. So they sound really good, those, but they do make me a little bit nervous because I don't want people to be put in a situation, that they're uncomfortable in.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think that, we're going to have to wait and see, but you can't change things overnight. I mean, that's the one thing we can all agree on. Nothing's going to happen overnight. And these things take time. Toby said, I wish I could see without my glasses on, but I keep pretending I can, and I can't. I bought last February 2023 as a first-time home buyer and have a 6.5% right now. I would like to refinance. Where? Oh my God, I was saying Toby. I'm sorry, I didn't have my glasses on. It's Tabby. Sorry about that. That's why I should wear them. First of all, I'm curious where you live. Where did you buy? And I think that you have to do the math on what, and you got to speak to your mortgage lender on what that would cost to refinance. And so what interest rate makes sense? Because it does cost money to refinance unless you have a free refi. So you got to take that all into effect. What's the net? What's going to cost you versus what your new payment's going to be? And then spread that out over how many years you think you're going to stay in the house and see if it makes sense. But you're in PG County. Oh, you're in Maryland. Yay. PG County, Maryland. You're right next door to me. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate that. So yeah, I would wait, and then I would speak to either your mortgage lender or anybody and just say, give me that number that I need where it makes sense for me to refinance, and they'll tell you. And then just keep looking and keep waiting for it, or tell them to let you know when it hits that number where it makes sense. Where you're not spending money to save money that that math doesn't work out. I don't know if I made any sense, but I think I did.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you. What else do you see going on, Adam? What else do you think is going to happen? I mean, I know we don't have a crystal ball, but and you're in Florida with a lot of inventory and a lot of builder incentives. I'm in, right outside of DC with not a lot of inventory, 0 builder incentives, none. I haven't seen any. In fact, they're selling out like hotcakes and not even cooperating with buyer agents at all. They actually never did. This is before the NAR settlement. They just really don't want to. So, and they don't have to.
Yep. Yeah. Well, Florida is an interesting market. So it'll be kind of a wait and to see if people who have been flooded out twice, because we had hurricanes now, August, September, and October definitely hit this area. And I have friends, who house got flooded. They were in the process of cleaning up, and 4 weeks later, flooded again. So we'll see if there is an influx of people leaving the coastal areas. to come further inland. We don't know if that's going to happen yet. I have seen from my experience that a lot of people who live along the coast have lots of money, easy to rebuild. But there's also lots of people in this area that have houses that have been there since the 50s and bought them for, $25,000. A lot of people don't have insurance, which is a massive issue in Florida.
Yeah.
Because some people, the cost of insurance has just gone through the roof, because we can talk about that all night long. Most of the companies left Florida because it's risk reward for them. And they're like, whoa, there's actually hurricanes. Now we have to pay out. So a lot of them left. So again, it's supply and demand. Insurance costs went up. A lot of people, as with all over the country, moved here during the pandemic.
Right.
When it was cheaper, and now it's not so cheap. And a lot of people are leaving the state because they moved here, it was cheap. It's not cheap anymore. A lot of people are leaving the state, regardless of what you hear on some news outlets, because they don't like the politics of Florida. And so there's a lot of reasons that people are leaving the state.
I had Palm Beach Paul, Paul.
Yeah.
I had him on a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about Florida, and so I did a video in Florida too, because I just
watch that's good.
I found it really interesting. First, I just want to tell you, she told me to wait until at least 1%, so we need 5.5. That makes sense, because that's everything taken into account. So just tell her to keep you, on her, eye line, when things go down, and then you can jump on that. And it's interesting because I actually had people reach out to me. This family reached out to me from Florida. Where was she in Florida? No, I'm spacing on her exact location. And she got upset that I was saying these things that were happening in Florida about these insurance rates going up and insurance companies leaving, and everything is going on. And I'm like, I don't want to upset anyone ever, but like, this is what people are telling me that live there.
Yep.
Like you, like Paul, my mom, my dad, independently, they're divorced. They both live in Florida. And this is what, the data is saying. And so, I'm just reporting it. And she got very upset with me.
Yeah. I mean, it's a tough reality. I mean, insurance costs have gone through the roof. Obviously, prices, the state just went back and kind of reassessed everybody. Of course, prices go through the roof. They want that reassessment.
Right.
More tax money coming in. And so a lot of people are leaving the area.
It's funny because our property taxes get higher when our home values get higher. So we're happy. Oh, my home is worth so much more money, but we still have to pay that monthly amount.
Yeah.
And if it's more, like, I just had to increase my escrow by $1,000, like out of the blue, like, your property tax going up, we need another $1,000. And I'm like, I don't have $1,000 right here to give you, kind sir, Mr. Escrow man. Like, and they're like, oh, we can just amortize it and we'll just put, more every month. And I'm like, okay, but still, like, it's nice that my house has gone up in value, but I'm not selling my house today. So that amount that's going up every month, that is my reality today.
Yeah. Sure.
And it's just, I think a lot of people are feeling the pain right now. Things are still expensive. I went to the grocery store yesterday and I was just like, not today. I'm not buying that today. And around here, at least, home prices have not gone down. I know a lot of the experts in my research have said that they expect home prices, even nationally, except for in certain markets that really were overvalued during the pandemic. I don't know if yours is one of them. I know that, like, they were talking about the Austins and the Boise's, whatever. But for the most part, they do see home prices continuing to increase next year and the year after, even only by 2 or 3%. But they're still going to increase. So if everything's still going up, I don't understand how the affordability crisis, which is a real crisis in our country when it comes to housing, is going to get better.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we are on the track, in my opinion, of inflation coming down a little bit, and costs coming down a little bit. Of course, people don't feel it. So if they don't feel it, then it's irrelevant. But we are going in that direction. I'm going to gather they're probably going to continue to go in that direction. But, our egg is going to be $1.99 next week. Maybe not. Tomorrow, right. 3 months from now.
Hey, let me ask you something. Because I actually had clients that moved to Hawaii. And isn't it like really different in Hawaii as far as title and stuff? I know we don't want to get into a whole conversation about, but is it harder to own property in Hawaii? It's
No.
also like the most expensive state of
Yes.
all the states, isn't it?
It's unbelievably expensive. And we sold our starter condo for $630.
Great.
And entry level residential condo, $630. You can get a couple little less expensive than that, but that's kind of the entry level. No, it's not difficult to do it now. Not to get into a whole long story, but it's incentivized for residential. So our taxes were like $500 a year.
Oh, wow.
They offer great incentives for people, but they have the same issue that a lot of other people do. Like they just converted everything to vacation rentals. So there's not enough properties for the people who actually live there, born and raised there, to do that. So they're going to attempt to get rid of the vacation rentals, but in the meantime, they kind of like, I don't know what the word is. They kind of like do a couple little things, like maybe that'll help. So for example, it's kind of either or, like it's either a vacation rental community or it's not.
Right. Or it's a residential community.
So for example, if the community that we lived in happened to be a vacation rentable community, those taxes would be like $8,000 or $9,000. That's where the county makes all their money.
Gotcha.
Or gets a lot of their money.
And is home insurance there bad as well because you're in such a tropical state?
Cheap. Also cheap. Oh. Yep. Interesting enough.
Yeah, it is interesting.
Yeah.
So do you think you're going to stay in Florida now? Are you there? Are you back?
You know, I have lived in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, California twice, Chicago, DC, Virginia Beach. Did I say Hawaii twice? Florida 3 times. So I never say never.
But you're staying there for now.
I am staying here for the moment.
Well, tell people how they can find you. I know you have a couple of channels. Do you still have your Hawaii channel too, or you that
Nope. I actually deleted my Hawaii channel right after the fires because the hate came in fast and furious.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a different conversation. So I have 2. One is 941 Lifestyle Group, and that is primarily kind of educational videos about the area, Lakewood Ranch, Sarasota, the beautiful Gulf beaches. And then I have 941 Premier Home Tours, which is just home tours, model homes, our listings, other agents' listings. So if you like that.
What's the average price point for a single family home where you are?
Well, the average is, like, what's the average here? Average in Sarasota County is $631,000, Manatee County $628,000. But I know you can buy a brand new house in this area for $400,000 or $6 million and kind of everything in between.
For a single family home, is that anywhere near the beach or not really?
Not a new construction, but you can find certainly older homes in the 5s.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw one today for $28 million, just in case anybody watching is interested. I can help you out with that.
Or you can buy one for $28 million.
Or $20 million.
Thanks for showing up, Vonda. I appreciate it. Great. Thank you, she said. And we got Slippin' Jimmy. Yes, my property taxes and my HOA fees go up every time the value of my home goes up. So frustrating. Interesting. The HOA fees go up as well when homes go. I don't live in an HOA neighborhood. Is that? I imagine a lot of this new construction where you are, Adam, have HOAs because most of
they have HOAs. I've seen them as low as like $200, and as high as like $600 or $700. I know on Maui, I've seen them as high as like $8,000 a month.
But they go up as the home values go up? I didn't know that. That's really interesting.
So the condo I was just telling you about that we sold for $630. When we moved in it, the HOAs were like $300, and right after we moved, they're now up to like $850.
Why?
Is
that because home prices went up, or but was it just because of the home values went up, or
no? Because the insurance went up because we had this fire there, so now there's panic and overcompensating. So hurricane insurance, flood insurance, the communities have to have that. Whether you have it, personally, the community still has to have those insurance, and those costs go up.
That makes sense because if insurance goes up, that costs the HOA more. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I just didn't realize that.
I've had plenty of conversations about homeowners association. You love them and you hate them. I was the vice president of my homeowners association. I got a very good understanding of costs and why some of those costs are. I mean, our landscaping was $20,000 a month. That's $250,000 a year just for landscaping.
Wow. That's where you are now?
No, but where we were in Hawaii, because I know people were complaining about the the homeowners associations, but we had like 50 buildings, and we're like, well, guess what? Yeah, we have to replace all the staircases.
Right.
Where does
Yeah.
that money come from?
Special
Your homeowners
assessments. Yeah.
association, yeah.
I know. We have like anywhere, we have good and bad HOAs in different neighborhoods. All the new developments have an HOA, but even
Yeah.
some existing developments, like where I live, there is no HOA, but literally the subdivision right next to me, one street over, has an HOA. And after being a realtor for close to 22 years, I don't know if I would want to live in one unless I had to.
Yeah, I always say that until your next door neighbor paints his house orange and parks 4 cars on the front lawn
Right.
while you're trying to sell your house.
Right. Yes. Then I might change my mind. Has that happened to
You
you?
might change your mind.
You're funny. Well, listen, I really want to thank you for coming on. It's been a lot of fun talking to you. I wish you the best of luck in Florida. Maybe we'll meet in person one day. I will be in Florida over the Christmas holidays to visit my dad. He lives in Boca. I don't think that's anywhere near you.
Okay, yeah, other coast.
Yeah.
Yes.
We got one more comment. Great show. Sorry, squinting, not helping. Great show, Caryn. I keep hearing nightmares about special assessments with many Florida condos, which are pricing some homeowners out of their homes. Would your guests recommend condos in Sarasota?
Yeah, I've done a couple of videos on this one because this one honestly blew. We still have time, right?
Yeah, of course. No, I just don't want to take up more of your time, but please.
So special assessments. So ironically, in Hawaii, we sold more condos than I've sold hundreds of homes. I can probably count on one hand how many condos I sold in this area. We moved to Hawaii, complete opposite, because there's just so many condos there. And most of those are Airbnbs. So the first question we would have our clients ask is, are there any special assessments? Right? Special assessments means you have a homeowners association who is not prepared for future costs that are going to happen. You're going to have to replace the roofs. You're going to have to paint the buildings. You're going to have to repave the parking lots. So if you have a homeowners association, part of that money, besides your landscaping and the cable, water, trash, should go toward those projects that you will need.
Right.
Florida, up until the collapse in Paul's neck of the woods, allowed homeowners associations to not put aside those money for those damages. So now these condo owners, primarily, I'm going to get to your point, Kevin, primarily on the East Coast, are adding all these special assessments now because they have to do all these repair works that they never had to put money aside for.
Right.
So to answer your question, that is not an issue here in Sarasota. I can't speak for every single solitary community. But if I was your realtor, that's the first thing that we would ask, right? Are there any special assessments, any big projects that are coming up? Any planned increases to the homeowners association? And again, it depends on where in Sarasota, because Sarasota goes all the way from the beach to 30 miles inland.
So would you recommend condos in Sarasota?
It depends. If is it your primary residence, or you're buying it to short-term vacation rental, or you're buying it just as a second home? Overall, I would say, yeah, because this area is still hot. Because I still think it's kind of like a little special place, even though it's not as special anymore. A lot more people know about it. But it's so much better than the East Coast.
I've heard the West Coast of Florida is stunning and beautiful. I just only know where my dad lives. I only know the East Coast, but one day
we're going to the beach tomorrow, so stay tuned for that video, because we have not been to the beach in 4 months.
Oh, well, that'd be nice. I love the beach. We go to Delaware. That's our beach. From here to Rehoboth Beach every summer, and it's like my happy place. I take the kids and we go for 2 weeks, and I just plant myself, and I'm so happy.
That's beautiful, yeah.
And then I come back to the suburbs.
Yep.
All right. Well, I will let you go. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Y'all find Adam Miller. He gave you his 2 channels. Give him one more time.
Yep. 941 Lifestyle Group.
941 Lifestyle Group and
941 Premier Home Tours.
941 Premier Home Tours. And I will put it in the comments in this video for the replay, so people have that as well. Thank you so much. I will see you on our online group. And y'all have a great night. Thanks for tuning in. If you're watching this on the replay, you have any questions for Adam or myself, put them in the comments and we will definitely get back to you. And I appreciate you all watching.